Hello, and welcome to Orion Outreach. I'm your host, Stacy Calloway. September 11th, or 9/11, a tragic day we will never forget. On that day in 2001, approximately 3,000 people lost their lives as a result of terrorist attacks. Of that number, more than 400 of them were first responders, and that number is still increasing. My guests today are Bob Smith and Brian Birney, and they plan to tell us how they remember. Okay, so talk to us about the event that you have coming up for Patriots Day.
Okay, 9/11, this will be our 18th or 17th year of doing it at the Orion Veterans Memorial up on M24 and Heights Road, and we do it at 7:30 in the evening. And it's just a reminder to the public to make sure that they don't forget that fateful day, and that they will, that we remember those that have lost their lives, and like you said in the intro, those that are still losing their lives because of that day.
Now, you gave me a few statistics. We talked about how many of them actually perished in those attacks.
Okay, on that day, 343 firefighters lost their lives, and then 61 Port Authority and EMTs, and then even we remember the ones over at the Pentagon. There was 118 lives lost that day. And for people who have probably seen the news lately, we've actually lost our 200th first responders since then through cancer and other injuries that they suffered on that day.
Talk to us about, as a first responder, you hear something like this, and what goes through your head? Like they just, got ready and just went in the building.
Yes, and that's exactly why this is so passionate to me. I was in the military, Brian was in the military. In the military, they give you the tools, the knowledge, the training to fight the war, to fight big events like that and stuff like that. But first responders, New York City, they're trained to fight high-rise fires, but they've never been trained. None of us have ever been trained to have planes go into them and to do that. And they didn't stop. They didn't say time out. We've got to go back to the drawing board to figure out what to do. They just went in and they did it. And that's why it's so passionate to me. These people, well, first of all, this was an attack on civilians. This was not an act of war. This was an attack on innocent civilians. And then our first responders responded to that without hesitation, without getting into the training manuals, what do we do and stuff like that. So that's why this is very passionate to me, and this is why I continue every year to push to have people not forget that day.
And Brian, you are a Marine. Talk to us about what was going on through your head at that time in 2001.
Sure. So last year I had the great fortune of being asked to be the keynote speaker during this memorial. And during that time, in preparing for my remarks, because it was so important to me and everyone involved, that I knew I had to do something that made everyone remember, but look at it from a different perspective. I have a tremendous respect for all of our first responders, beyond just 9/11, but every day they serve our communities. But that day obviously was something special and something important. But there was another side to that story when September 11th happened. And when I asked, why did he ask me to do this? Because certainly there's many more people more deserving. He had said, I want you to tell your story. How did it affect you as being a Marine at the time, and how did that transform your life moving forward? Which obviously it did tremendously for everybody, but especially the first responders and military. I just happened to be I was currently in the reserves at the time, but knowing that we were going to get activated any day. I mean, there was no way that this was going to go unanswered. We all knew that. Especially in the military. So I immediately started preparing to go. Not until a year or so later did we actually go overseas, and did we fully comprehend what this actually was. Everyone thought we were going to Iraq or somewhere, Iran, or no one really knew, but the global war on terrorism is still going on. But it was such a eye-opening experience where we're looking at this saying, this is a war, this is a fight on a global standpoint, not just, this battle or this hill or, this field or this target. It was everywhere. So I actually ended up going to Djibouti, Africa, which we have an 88-acre anti-terrorist base there. I had no idea Djibouti even existed before they told me I was going there for over 7 months. But I can tell you it's hot, and it's not a great place to go. But be that as it may, that was the call that was made, and you go where Uncle Sam tells you to. So that's where we went. But we're still fighting this war, and there's still things going on. And again, I have a huge respect for our first responders, and I frankly, it's a huge team effort. You have your firefighters, your police, you have your military. We were all together on this day, and civilians for that matter. I mean, it was everybody who was involved, and that's why the 9/11 Memorial is so important, and our Veterans Memorial is so important. That we just cannot ever forget. And having my children sit there that weren't even born or even thought of at that time, seeing their dad up there talking about something like this and getting emotional about it, and them saying, what was that all about, and to try to explain to them the magnitude of what happened is they don't really believe it. They can't comprehend it. Their young minds can't absorb something that evil. But that is why these things are so important. So I was honored to be a part of it.
Good. And then talk to us about what are some of the events that you have coming up that day, or do you have a few events leading up to September 11th?
Actually, that's the only event we have in Orion Township or in Lake Orion. However, the Oakland County Sheriff Department will be honoring the first responders down at their memorial at 1200 North Telegraph. There's several events going on during the day, but as far as what we're involved in, that's the only one we're involved in that day. But again, these events go on because we can't let people forget what happened that day.
And then talk to us about the time, like what time, where should they go?
7:30 in the evening, and it's at the corner of Heights and M24. It's the Orion Veterans Memorial that will be holding the ceremony. And if you're not familiar with it, just drive down 24 towards Lake Orion, and there will be a beautiful big American flag flying over M24, donated by the Flood family, who's a very patriotic family in town here. They donated that flag. The fire department flies it on their aerial.
Talk to me about people who have said, after September 11th, maybe they wanted to become a firefighter, I should say, or a police officer. Have you guys, had anyone, express interest?
Oh yes, there's I retired from the Orion Fire Department, so when that happened, we had people that were inspired by and I use the term loosely, inspired. It wasn't a gala event, but they were inspired to join either the ranks of police or fire. Or the military because of 9/11. There's a friend of mine, she has a friend over in New York City that was actually studying to be an attorney when 9/11 hit, and she dropped out of college that day to be an attorney and became a New York police officer. So that's what I look for. Brian, when I approached Brian, he wasn't fire or police, but it still it affected him that day. That's what I look for every year when I have a speaker come, to make sure that people understand that this affected everybody's lives in different ways, but those who were inspired to become first responders or even the military because of this.
And I want to say thank you too, because both of you, just becoming first responders and also fighting in the military for us to protect us is, that's very important. How long have you been doing this?
Well, all told, I've been since 1967. I went in the military. I got out in '74. I did some stints in law enforcement, and then I got into the fire department. I spent 31 years in Orion Township Fire Department, and again, like I say, I retired, and it only lasted 6 months, and I had to get into something. It's just in my DNA to be able to help others and stuff like that. And again, I because of 9/11, it just keeps me going every year.
And because of 9/11, how do you get donations, or who helps you guys put these events together?
The events are put together through the Orion Veterans Memorial, but there's donation boxes around town for the Orion Veterans Memorial. For this particular event, there's no cost to it. Everybody's a volunteer. Everybody puts their time in to remember. But there's always around town and stuff like that. The Orion Veterans Memorial is always looking for donations. We have a website you can go on to, the OrionVeteransMemorial.com. It shows a vast array of what we do as far as veterans and first responders.
And Brian, you mentioned that your kids are younger, so besides hearing you talk last year, do you have something else that you plan to do, or maybe take them to this event?
Yes, I will, as long as I can, take them to this event every single year, because you hear different people's perspectives, and that's how they learn. And when they can see people talk about this and get emotional about this. I mean, even Pearl Harbor Remembrance Days. I mean, all these significant dates in our history, that they need to understand that and appreciate it, and the men and women that have fought for our country and been first responders. And when you try to tell a child that this person runs into a burning building to save you, and they could possibly die themselves,
right,
they don't get it. Or this police officer is gonna rush into a situation where they know someone's shooting back at them, or that bad things are happening, or a building's on fire because a plane just crashed into it. These are things that you don't want them to think about, but it happened, and we all need to remember it. So it's a hard job explaining it. There's no doubt about it. But they also need to know the sacrifices that men and women make every single day as first responders and as military that make our country as great as it is.
And then we're going to wrap up with that. That was perfectly executed. So thank you both for joining us, and we certainly hope that we have a lot of people who come out for this event and who actually tune in and remember. And we'd like to certainly thank you for watching this Orion Outreach Edition. I'm Stacy Calloway. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.